This is the story of how I escaped a man who planned to kill me and waited for me to trust him. And no one stopped him but me. I worked late evenings at a small shop near a bus stop where people lingered. For weeks, I noticed the same man sitting on a cracked bench facing the street. He talked to anyone who slowed down and often kept talking after they tried to leave. His words jumped topics, and his laughter came late and ended abruptly. Sometimes he stared at people until they changed direction. One night, he spoke to me as if we already knew each other. He said he lived alone nearby and liked helping strangers who looked tired. He returned every evening and remembered my schedule without asking. He knew what time I closed and where I usually walked. That knowledge should have warned me, but routine made it seem normal. On the night this began, I closed later than usual, and the street was quiet. He stood up immediately when I locked the door. He said the route I used had become dangerous and offered me a ride. He explained shortcuts with confidence and pointed to his car parked close. I hesitated but followed because my legs were tired and I wanted to go home. The car was clean and empty, with no personal items visible. When we started moving, he locked the doors without comment. He spoke continuously and never asked my name. He asked if people ever disappeared without effort. He asked how long it took before anyone noticed someone was gone. His voice stayed flat and calm. After several turns, I realized we were not on the main road. I mentioned it, and he tightened his grip on the wheel before relaxing. He said people always doubted him, and that trust solved everything. He said he never hurt anyone unless they trusted him first. The road grew unfamiliar and darker. At a traffic light, a bag slid from the seat to the floor. The zipper opened enough for me to see gloves tape and a knife placed neatly. He did not try to hide it and waited for my reaction. I kept my voice steady and said I needed to buy something quickly. He looked at me directly and smiled wider. The light stayed red long enough for me to step out. I closed the door gently and walked across the street. The car stayed still behind me. I did not run until I reached the next block. I did not go home that night. I stayed awake until morning, replaying his words and the bag. I believed I had escaped and that the danger had passed. That's when I thought it was over. I had no idea what was about to happen next. The next day, I changed my routine and left work earlier, believing distance alone could end it. When I arrived, his bench was empty, and that absence felt wrong. During my shift, customers mentioned a man asking about closing times. Near the end of the night, I saw him across the street, watching the door. He did not wave or approach. When I locked up, he stood and followed at a steady pace. I crossed the street twice, and he crossed both times. I entered a crowded store and waited until he walked past. 10 minutes later, he stood outside again, pretending to check his phone. I left through another exit and walked fast. He followed without hiding it. He said my name calmly, even though I never told him. He said I dropped something in his car. He held up the same unopened water bottle. I said nothing and kept moving. He walked beside me and matched my pace. He said trust was already broken, and that made things harder. He said he preferred when people cooperated. He described how tired people made mistakes. He said he waited for the right moment because rushing ruined things. We reached a quieter block, and he stepped closer. I moved toward traffic, and he backed off. He smiled like the situation amused him. He said fear made people predictable. He said I would calm down and return to normal. He said everyone did. I reached a friend's building and stayed inside until morning. The next day, he appeared again near my work. He spoke to coworkers and learned details I never shared. He adjusted his schedule to mine. He waited outside every night. I stopped using the same entrances. He learned the alternatives. I changed routes and times. He adapted faster. He left notes near places I passed. The notes described where I had been minutes earlier. He never threatened me directly. He described actions instead of making promises. He said he enjoyed watching decisions form. He said survival made people interesting. One evening, he blocked my path briefly and stepped aside without touching me. He said I was close to understanding him. I realized he was not chasing me to kill me quickly. He was wearing me down on purpose. I stopped sleeping at home and rotated between places without telling anyone. He still found me. He waited outside buildings and across streets without approaching. He timed his appearances to moments when I was alone. He never raised his voice or made threats. He spoke like someone discussing plans already decided. One night, he followed me into an empty parking structure and let the distance close. He said I was tired enough now. He said resistance faded when exhaustion won. He reached into his jacket slowly and showed the same knife for a second before hiding it again. He said he did not need to rush because I was already trapped by fear and routine. I ran toward the exit, and he did not chase me. He wanted me to keep moving. Days later, I found my bag placed neatly outside a place I stayed. Everything inside was arranged better than I left it. Nothing was missing. That was his message. He knew where I was and could enter whenever he wanted. I stopped carrying anything personal. I avoided everyone. I avoided help. One evening, I saw him waiting inside a place I trusted. He said I finally looked ready. He said most people begged by this point. He said I was quiet instead. He stepped closer and blocked the only exit. I dropped my phone and bag on the floor to distract him. I moved past him when he looked down for half a second. I ran until my legs failed and did not stop when I fell. I hid in a place with lights and people and stayed there until morning. I never saw him again after that night. Weeks later, I learned through conversations that others along his routes never made it away. Their routines ended suddenly. Their places stayed empty. I understood then why he let me go. He wanted me alive to carry the weight of knowing. He wanted survival to hurt longer than death. I escaped him, but the cost followed me everywhere. One last question. If you were in her place at that moment, would you have done the same? Be honest. What does her choice deserve out of 10?